Greetings, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Never Seen It. My name is Trent. That over there is Betsy.
Hello, listeners.
She is always with me, and guys, we would just like to say right off the bat, the summer has come calling because we're both sick.
Literally last week, the second we stopped recording the episode, you were like, I don't think I feel very good.
Yeah.
And it's just been downhill from there.
I could almost tell in the last half of that episode that I sounded a little haggard, and I'm afraid that this week is no better. But we're going to power through this for you guys because we're nearing the finish line of our 5th annual Decade series. And Betsy, I'm really, really excited for this one because earlier this year, we talked about this in the last episode. Earlier this year on Patreon, the Wayback Machine show takes us to a whole lot of different places randomly. And earlier this year, it took us to 2008 to cover the movie Cloverfield. Now, that was a movie that neither of us had ever watched before, but of course, if you were alive in 2008, you knew about Cloverfield.
You definitely were aware of it. It was one of those insanely marketed movies that was kind of being shoved at us, and it did well, but we just didn't watch it. We weren't that interested at the time.
No, and we were, not really watching a whole lot of those movies at the time. But in our recent years, we've been way more into horror movies and learning about them and discovering the different weird genres that we are finding that we really enjoy. And Cloverfield was definitely one of those. I loved watching Cloverfield.
It was a wild experience to watch that movie for the first time.
So, as a result, we have decided to watch the follow-up that came out 1 decade ago, 10 Cloverfield Lane. Now, I understand this movie is very, very different. I think it is produced by J.J. Abrams, but as like the original Cloverfield, it was not directed by him. This was directed by a guy named Dan Trachtenberg. This is his first feature film. And as I mentioned in that Cloverfield episode, I've been aware of Dan Trachtenberg since the mid-2000s. He was on a show on the internet called The Totally Rad Show, where it was 3 guys who talked about their passions. And Dan's passion was always movies. So to see this guy, who is basically our age, just a little bit older, to see this guy go from this web series all the way to directing like huge franchise movies like Prey and the 2 most recent Predator movies is really, really impressive. And I'm so proud of the guy to come out of internet obscurity to the heights of Hollywood.
He's following his dreams and it's going well for him.
Yeah. So about the movie itself. 10 Cloverfield Lane. I already said it's nothing really like the original Cloverfield. What do you know about it?
So this one, I don't know if it is another series of events that's like a sequel, a follow-up, or if it's happening concurrently to the events of Cloverfield, or how the timeline is affected, if it has anything to do with it at all. It might be a totally different kind of monster movie at a different time, at a different place, that has really nothing to do with the first Cloverfield. What I do know is that it is Mary Elizabeth Winstead, the guy who played Jim in The Newsroom, and John Goodman, and he has, I think, kidnapped them and locked them in a cellar.
Something like that,
Something like that. This is more like cult end of the world, and he is holding them hostage. But how it actually comes to pass that they're in there, if we get to see any of that, or we just start right in the middle where we've already been in this place for a while.
Yeah, I'm really curious here as to what the timeline is, like you said, and how it is doled out to us. Like, are we getting flashbacks to them going into the bunker? Do they ever get out of the bunker? Do we see footage from the original Cloverfield? Is there a monster? I have no idea.
It's extremely contained, because it's just in this one place, to the best of my knowledge. It's basically like a doomsday cult.
Yeah, and this is the kind of movie that you and I can really sink our teeth into because it is very few actors. It is in a confined space. All you have is dialogue here.
And how do you make that confined space not boring? How do you keep it interesting?
Yeah.
And one of the things we didn't know until literally yesterday when you were looking up this movie is that this was written by Damien Chazelle, or he has like a co-writing credit or something.
He is a co-writer of this movie, yeah. I just happened to see it on the IMDb page. Damien Chazelle had something to do with writing this movie. What the fuck?
And so this came out the same year as La La Land. This is post-Whiplash. It's kind of this weird cross-section of a lot of different talents, and they're making a monster movie. I don't know what to expect.
I don't know. But you know what? Cloverfield was very influential. It was a really big success back in the day, and a lot of people really love it. So, of course, they had to make a quasi-sequel. I don't know, Betsy, but we're going to go and find out right now. We're going to go watch 10 Cloverfield Lane for 2016. We will be right back. And that, my friends, was 10 Cloverfield Lane. 10 years in the making. Betsy, what are your immediate feelings upon watching that movie for the first time?
So as expected, it is very different from Cloverfield. This feels like one of those movies where it had nothing to do with Cloverfield. The script existed, and then they slapped the Cloverfield name on it, which you looked into.
Quite literally, that is exactly what happened.
Literally what they did.
This script was going under the name of, I think, The Bunker, and JJ read it and bought it, and then they started to adapt it into something semi-related in the same universe, but not directly tied to Cloverfield.
However, in most cases when we have talked about this, that's something that bothers me. But this movie's actually quite strong on its own, and I don't give a shit. I really enjoyed this. Yes, it has nothing to do with the original Cloverfield, save the last 15 minutes of the movie. But that's kind of okay, I think.
Yeah, it can exist as its own story, have its own characters. And that is actually kind of common when it comes to different horror movies in the same universe. Because think about all the different, like, Friday the 13th movies. Obviously, we haven't seen any of those yet. But think about the long running franchises that have very little to do with each other than, like, the main villain, or there's one heroine that is there the entire time. I don't think I would have wanted any direct connection to the original Cloverfield. I think that would have cheapened this movie. And the idea that this guy, you know, is a prepper, is one of these preppers, and he's heard through the grapevine that there's a lot of chatter from the Russians or the Martians or anybody else out there who is deemed a threat. It would make sense that this guy would create this bunker just in case some shit goes down. And whatever that shit is, it doesn't really matter. In the case of the Cloverfield universe, in the first movie, there's this giant fucking creature that is birthed from somewhere and is attacking New York City. In this movie, it seems like there is some kind of quote-unquote attack, but we don't know what that is. He describes it, but he hasn't witnessed it himself. We have the other character, Emmett. He says that he saw an attack, but he's too stupid to really explain what the fuck it is. So you roll all these people together. You roll the prepper guy and the idiot guy and the woman who is just trying to get away from a bad situation. It's all ignorance. You have no idea what is happening, but you put enough pieces together to accept the idea that this is actually a real thing. Like, there is a threat out there, but I just can't see it.
And that's what I liked about it, is the movie keeps you guessing.
Yeah.
Because every time you think, oh, John Goodman is just a crazy man who has kidnapped this woman and is holding her hostage, you get some piece of information suggesting that perhaps he's not crazy, that there is something going on outside. But then you get another piece of information that swings you back the other way. And this goes the whole movie right down to the very end.
One thing in the trivia that I read that I think is kind of brilliant in that this is the real way that movies are put together. It's the real way movies are made. Movies are made in the editing bay. And what I read was they shot different versions of the same scene with a different tone, where the characters' attitudes were different. The dialogue is the same, but there are tonal shifts, or the music is different, giving it a different feel. They shot different versions of every single scene, and in the editing bay, that's where they chose which versions of the scenes that they put into the movie. It's why we have this kind of happy montage scene of everybody, doing puzzles together and just killing time. It's kind of a fun scene in the movie, but then again, knowing what happens throughout the rest of the movie, it's a big change by the end of the movie. So knowing that, of course, I want to know what the other versions really look like. I want to know what the really happy-go-lucky versions throughout the entirety of the movie really look like. I also really want to know the sinister versions.
How dark could this have actually gotten?
Yeah, and it gets pretty dark.
It gets pretty dark at different points of the movie.
Yeah. So I'm right there with you, Betsy. I really, really enjoyed this one. I knew it was not going to have anything to do with Cloverfield. I knew that John Goodman was going to be this conspiracy theorist. He's only having people down here for their own good. And what I didn't know was that you were going to have so many questions as to his intent, his background, and really just his demeanor, because at certain points in the movie, you think, this is a sinister kind of a character. He's only got people down here to do whatever with. I'm not gonna speculate. But also at the same time, he's this sweet teddy bear of a man who's only trying to protect people.
And it is a very different role for John Goodman, but I think that's why he was cast, because you and I know him as the big, lovable guy.
And so did Dan Trachtenberg. He is around our same age. He grew up knowing John Goodman as the dad on fucking Roseanne, We have always said that John Goodman is one of our favorite actors working today, and pretty much our entire lives, he has been a part of it in some way. So like you said, it makes sense that he is cast in this because he can play both. He can play the unassuming, kind of simple-minded guy that is only trying to help people, but also he's got some real mental problems when it comes to the relationship that he has with his daughter and his family, and him wanting to recreate that. And they don't really come out and say it here, but apparently the 2 years ago, disappearance of that woman, that was him. He was the one who kidnapped that missing girl, kept her here, and who the fuck knows what happened to her.
Presumably she ended up in a vat of acid, because there's no other place for her to go in this place.
Yeah, so...
But yeah, all of that to say, it's weird to watch John Goodman in a role like this, but it's fascinating at the same time, because we have all these predisposed ideas of, we like this actor and we have empathy for him. And there are times watching this where you're trying to figure out if he's a good guy or if he's a bad guy, if he is just misunderstood or he has deep psychological problems.
I think it's all of the above, Betsy. I think he does have a nurturing side of him where he literally does want to take care of these people. He has empathy for these people, but he also has the conspiracy side of him where the fucking Russians have weapons and the Martians have weapons, and they're coming down here are gonna make the Russian weapons look like sticks and stones and shit like that. Also, he was a member of the military. He knows some fucking secrets. So the movie, as you say, it just keeps you guessing throughout the entirety of it. It's not until John Gallagher Jr., and I'm sorry, but for the rest of this episode, I'm going to refer to the guy with the beard as Jim, because Betsy and I only know him from one thing. He was Jim on The Newsroom on HBO. I don't know. That's just something that we do outside of the podcast.
It's more convenient.
It's not until Jim gets shot in the fucking face where you know that shit is going to go bad.
And then it takes mere minutes for it to go completely off the rails.
She knows at this point, there's no staying here. It doesn't matter how fucked up it is outside. I'm not going to survive this thing. I would rather die than have to be with this man for any longer than I have to.
I will take my chances outside and see what's actually going on out in the world because I only have this guy's word for it. Yes, I've seen some of it for myself, but we've only seen the pigs and that woman. Maybe it's an isolated thing. We don't know. We don't know, Trenton. It's not until she sees the fucking birds flying overhead that suddenly she goes, oh, maybe it's okay.
But here's the deal, though. He was right. Partially. They do poison the air, but not all the time. It dissipates after a short amount of time and then it's fine. But the question, of course, that arises through all these different statements we are making is what the fuck happened? Who is piloting this alien craft, or is it just an organic being in and of itself? What the fuck is going on?
It's like a being within some kind of exoskeleton that also flies.
Sure, why not?
But then there's little creatures that it can like send down as scouts. It's not very well explained because there's no time to explain it. It's the end of the movie.
Yeah, which I did appreciate here, the way that she dispatches this alien craft, which is literally her creating a Molotov cocktail and throwing it into the mouth of this thing a la Independence Day. And Betsy, just to kind of go back to the director of the movie, I mentioned that he was on a show in the introduction. I mentioned he was on a show called The Totally Rad Show, where it's him and a couple other guys talking about a whole bunch of geeky stuff. Like one guy was way into video games. Dan was there talking about movies and shit. And I know that Dan is a fan of video games. He is a fan of fucking creature features like Predator. So I feel like there's a lot of inspiration here as to how things are shown. I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but some of the visuals here, some of the way he is setting everything up reminds me of some video games, reminds me of some old sci-fi without being like direct homages to it. Does that make sense?
I mean, referencing the Predator in particular, you don't see the Predator for most of the movie. Right. And then when you do, you're one ugly motherfucker. That's kind of what it is. Like, you are guessing the entire movie. Is this real? What is outside? We don't know. But because it's 10 Cloverfield Lane, and we know it is somehow connected to Cloverfield, that it must be some kind of creature. And you don't get it until the very end. And when you do see it, it's like this weird anus face sucking, horrible looking thing.
That's a really great image, Betsy.
I don't know how else to call it other than it looks like a sphincter.
It does. It does. But all right. I mean, I guess that's as good a place as any to take a break after anus face, sphincter creature. We're going to take a word from our sponsor, and then we're going to come right back and talk more about 10 Cloverfield Lane. You know, recently I've been bored and feeling out of sorts. My normal podcasts just weren't cutting it anymore, so I talked to my doctor, and she recommended patreon.com/neverseenitpod, and now I feel better than ever.
Patreon.com/neverseenitpod is a once-weekly subscription podcast used to create joy. Side effects may include a sense of euphoria, aching muscles from smiling, and a dependence on the host's addictive personalities. Do not take this podcast if you are allergic to fun, have a history of laughing until you pee, or are afraid of a good time.
Talk to your doctor about patreon.com/neverseenitpod today. Now, Betsy, as we said in the intro, a movie like this should really work for us because it is a very small cast. It is set in one place, basically over the course of what, days, weeks, months?
They don't really specify, but I assume it's maybe weeks at the most, because they switch back and forth between trusting each other, not trusting each other.
Yeah.
There's a lot of back and forth in that time frame.
It's a relative short amount of time. Certainly less than the year plus that John Goodman was really referring to. But let's actually talk about John Goodman's performance in the movie. We already kind of mentioned him a little bit here. How are you feeling here? Did he pull it off? Did you believe that he was a threat immediately? Or did you immediately think that, okay, something is off here?
Listen, anybody who like chains you to a bed and locks you behind a door, you have to at least question what the hell the motivation there is. Because yes, you could say, oh, he's just making sure that he's protected. But also, it did sort of seem like she got run off the road, and she figures out pretty quickly that it was him when you see the truck with the red paint on the side of it.
Yeah, why do you think that he chained her up? Because if you're really going down the road of he is crazed when it comes to the father-daughter kind of a thing, I don't think that he would do that to his daughter, but also he doesn't want the women in his life to leave him, so maybe that's why he does it.
It's coming from some kind of place of fear, but of course, he's also insane, which we don't know right away. And again, it's that thing of how long it takes to decide if he's a good or a bad guy. Like, yes, he's giving her fluids, and yes, he's feeding her food, and he gives her pain medication, and he lets her take a shower, and he's doing all these things that appear to be, I have genuine concern for you, but also he's doing the thing where he says, you ought to show a little gratitude for me saving your life.
Right.
But he's not explaining the situation to her at all and not offering any kind of proof as to that he is, in fact, saving her life.
He also doesn't admit to her until much later, I was the one who ran you off the road. I was panicking because the attack was imminent. It hadn't happened yet. But I was driving erratically. I was the one who ran you off the road. I saved you. I rescued you. But because I knew the attack was imminent, I rescued you. And don't I feel like a big, strong man?
And I'm sorry I did that. That's my bad. But because it's John Goodman, anybody less of an actor would not have been able to get me back on his side so frequently. Yeah. There are many swings where I'm like, I am suspicious as hell of this guy. And then I go back to, actually, maybe he's just misunderstood.
Yeah, maybe we are the ones.
The other one.
Yeah, maybe we're the ones reading it incorrectly here, because I think also the director here is manipulating your emotions when it comes to the music being played. When she is waking up for the first time and she is frantic and she is panicking and she has no idea what's happening here, the music that is playing here is very, I don't know, it's very thriller-like.
It's intense.
Yeah. And I think very intentionally here. But then we get all the way to the point where she has fashioned herself a fucking stabbing implement out of her crutches. And as she is just standing there idly waiting for him to come, the music kind of dies down very slowly.
Makes it anticlimactic. Like, what am I doing here? This is stupid.
This is stupid. Like, this guy isn't really trying to do anything. He seems like he might be on the up and up. How about I do this instead of attack him?
He literally left your phone there. Not that it does you much good, but it's not like he was hiding all the stuff from her. Yes, he's got her chained up in this room, but you could still argue at this point, maybe it is for her own protection, because I need to break this to her gently.
I mean, Betsy, we've seen one Saw movie. This is kind of set up in a similar way, where
I did think of
maybe
that.
Audiences coming into this, they're going to be manipulated into thinking, oh my God, she needs to do some gnarly shit here to get herself out of this situation. Not like what happens in Saw, but still, I feel like the music here is done extremely well. My emotions were manipulated to a T. I was completely bought in these times where, you don't really think anything is happening, but then you're questioning, maybe there is something sinister happening with this guy. But the more you watch him, the more you listen to what he has to say, I'm being softened up. Like, okay, maybe he's not so bad. He's making them a nice meal, and maybe he's just had a hard life and he's just kind of a simpleton. I don't really know.
But by the end, when he goes full crazy and he's like, hello, I have a barrel of acid and tell me the truth or I'm going to dunk you in the acid and you will go in alive. John Gallagher Jr. takes one for the
Jim.
Jim takes one for the team. And he is promptly shot in the head. No hesitation, no warning. You and I were both like, you looked away for just a second.
I looked at my phone for just a beat and I missed it. But immediately after that, he turns into like fucking protective dad mode. And right before this scene here, they're playing the word game. And he can't bring himself to call her a woman.
He won't use that word.
Yeah. So in his eyes, Michelle is just a girl that he is protecting. He doesn't let on very often that that is what his mental state is, but in this moment, it is very clear.
And after he dispatches Jim from this earth, he goes and he cleans himself up. He shaves his face. He puts on a fresh set of clothes. He is in his nicest outfit.
Yeah.
And this is where the transformation into his most monstrous is complete, which is really counterintuitive, that he makes himself the most presentable when he is the scariest.
Yeah, he kind of presents himself in a way that is most palatable to a young person. Like, the beard is gone. I'm wearing, nice khakis and a nice shirt, and I'm bringing you ice cream. What child would refuse all that?
And also, we're having dessert before dinner because now it's the way it was always supposed to be.
We get to do what we want.
But the way it escalates from that to she actually gets free for a little bit and then dunks his fucking face in the acid bath when she is crawling in the air shaft and there's a knife coming through there and he has completely gone off the rails. I screamed. I wasn't ready for that knife.
Yeah, that moment there was maybe one of the best in the entire movie. But I'll do you one better, Betsy. It's when they're at the table, they're all having dinner together, and it's a little bit tense. And this is just a little bit after Jim and Michelle are having a conversation about what's really going on here. And they're kind of starting this weird flirtatious communication where she's just it seems like she's trying to get a rise out of John Goodman. And the moment that I'm talking about, when John Goodman slams the table with his fist, he gets up and pushes her against the wall. Maybe not pushes, but he has her up against the wall and is intimidating as hell, yelling and bellowing as John Goodman is wont to do.
He's a big man and a very intimidating presence.
He is a presence in this space, of course. But that moment, I think, surprised me the most out of everything. Because, of course, in this moment, you would not expect such a large reaction to what is kind of innocent. But it just shows you there is this side of him that will do some stuff that you are not expecting.
It's because she's being flirtatious, and flirtation is tied to sexuality, and sexuality implies that she's old enough and in control of her own decision-making.
Yep.
And she is a woman, and he is not about that. He has the blinders on. Any woman is actually just a girl, a child, someone who needs to be protected. Why he has chosen her, we don't know. Was he following her for longer than we actually are aware of? We don't know. All we know is that she is here now and he is going weird dad mode.
Yeah, it's kind of like what happens in the original Cloverfield and a lot of other movies where there are subplots kind of happening concurrently along with the main story. In Cloverfield, we have this very humanistic story between a man and a woman, and the man is trying to go after and save the woman. I think the overarching story with this one is the relationship that the John Goodman character has with women. And I don't know, maybe he just thought of this opportunity when he realized that the attack was happening. Oh God, I need to get a girl down here with me because I have this desire. I need to have this. And if the shit is hitting the fan right now, this is my last chance.
But it also sort of seems like he just genuinely lives down there all the time because he already did this with one other person. We don't get it factually, but we have enough evidence to suggest something went down in this bunker before the aliens attacked.
Right. And Betsy, only because we covered this movie earlier this year on a different show, were you also thinking about Blast from the Past?
I didn't actually think about that one. I did think about Take Shelter, which we didn't do for an episode, but we watched a few months ago.
Right.
It's kind of another one of those movies that precedes 10 Cloverfield Lane. It's about a guy who builds a shelter, but he's also having these visions, and you are spending the entire movie wondering, is he seeing things that are real, or is he just losing his mind?
Yeah, I kind of got a lot of parallels to that movie as well, where the main character in that movie is seeing things that you don't know are real or not, but the things that he sees are signs of impending doom, whatever that happens to be. whether they're like premonitions or just, I don't know, just visions from the future. These characters are very similar, but in the case of 10 Cloverfield Lane, there's a lot more sinister things happening with the John Goodman character. But let's move on to Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Apparently, she was the only choice they had to play Michelle, which, to be honest, I can't really think of too many other things that we have actually seen her in. Of course, the Scott Pilgrim movie is the first thing that comes to mind because that's the first and maybe only other thing I've seen her in.
I saw her on a TV show around this time. It was very short-lived, and she's also in that Birds of Prey movie that we have not watched.
Right. But what did you think about her? I mean, how she fits into this, like her age. She does look a little bit younger than what she actually is, because I think she's around our age.
I mean, they set up at the beginning of the movie that she's old enough to have a fiance that she is going to leave. Or a husband.
Yeah.
We're not really sure. They don't really specify.
It doesn't actually say there, but I just looked it up, Betsy. She is about 1 month younger than I am.
Which would have put her in her early 30s when this movie was made.
Right.
And yeah, maybe that's part of why she was cast, because she has a youthful appearance. And so John Goodman, having some questionable views and psychological problems in this movie, sees her and envisions her younger than she actually is.
Or maybe in an age where that's maybe where his daughter would have been at the time.
Maybe she's the same age, true. We don't know what happens to his daughter, and he lies about it all the time.
It's possible. Now, go with me on this. Maybe what he tells them about the story of, my wife took my daughter away from me. I was trying to protect them. I was building this bunker and they left for Chicago and left me by myself. Maybe what he says there is true. And him kidnapping that other girl 2 years ago was him acting out in a way that, okay, I'm trying to restore my family. Do you think that that is most plausible, that what he said there about his family leaving him is true?
Yeah, he's clearly had some kind of psychological break, especially if he is telling Mary Elizabeth Winstead, oh, this is my daughter, and hands her a photo. Because in that moment, he probably believes it is his daughter.
Yeah, I think you're right. Basically, anybody who he is assigning the name Megan is his daughter. And if this whole thing would have kept on going, he would probably start calling her Megan.
And going back to your question about her in the role, because she is one of those people that I do perceive as having a lot of inner strength as an actress. Like, I think of her as being in Scott Pilgrim, where she's kick-ass. She's a kick-ass girl.
Yeah, she's very independent.
So I bring that energy along with me when I'm watching this one, because she can take care of herself. And
which is why, she was the first choice. It makes sense.
And she tries right away to get herself out of this situation. We see her trying to break through the handcuffs. She tries to get her phone. She tries to get a signal. She starts a fucking fire to get this guy's attention. She fashions a shiv,
Yeah.
She is gonna get out of this place. And then she plays along for a little while until she is convinced that, oh, maybe I should stay. That's when the guard comes down and she actually starts relaxing and settling into this situation.
But it is not until she finally gets the gumption, gets the keys, and tries to make a run for it. She gets all the way to the outside door when that woman comes to the door, banging on it, screaming at her, saying, I need to be let in, and all this other crazy stuff. It's not until she sees it for herself that she's finally convinced, oh, this guy, he's actually onto something here. But of course, in this moment when she's looking out there, everything looks fine. There is a car there. The lights are on. The sky is blue. There's clouds in the sky. Not everything is burning. There's no smoke everywhere. You can't see fucking alien spacecraft in the sky. At first glance, it looks fine. But then the woman is there and she is convinced otherwise. So at this moment, of course, she is accepting that, yeah, I guess shit's kind of fucked here, so let's make the best of it. But also, she doesn't completely let her guard down, because she keeps on kind of conspiring with Jim and overhearing conversations and just still having an ick factor to the whole deal.
But that doesn't happen right away. It's not until they hear something going overhead and, he points out it's not American military, whatever that
Right.
sound is. I was in the military for 14 years. I know the sound of the equipment that our machinery makes. And that is not an American plane and not an American helicopter. I don't know what is making that sound.
Right. And the difference here with that is that even he is not sure about things outside.
But it coincides with something going wrong with the ventilation, which is frankly a convenient thing to happen at that moment.
You also got to set up her escape route.
Yeah, but she goes up there and I immediately hate it. I hate it because it's claustrophobic and I don't like it. And he says, you're the only one small enough to get through. And if you get stuck, no one can rescue you. So don't get stuck.
But also, Betsy, I feel like this has happened before, where the woman who was there before, the girl who was there before, she had to go through all that duct work and scratch the word help on the outside of that hatch. Yeah, this is not the first time they have had to send somebody into that hole.
Which is the moment she once again goes back to, shit, this guy has done something bad. And now I'm going to go back to being suspicious because they just keep going back and forth the whole movie until the very end when he goes full crazy, tries to stab her in the vent, and then we don't see him die, Trent. There was a moment that I thought he was going to get out of the bunker. Like maybe he's got a suit. You think a prepper like him doesn't have a gas mask somewhere?
I'm sure there's some kind of hazmat stuff in there. And I had the same thought. I thought he was going to emerge from that fucking barn or some other escape hatch that we didn't know about. But I think it works better that he doesn't escape because then the Michelle character can, go freely into the night after she defeats the alien craft.
My assumption is if this movie didn't have anything to do with Cloverfield, that this is the part that got added on to tie it into the universe. That she would escape the bunker and then just drive off into the sunset a la Final Girl style. No big deal.
Totally.
Or he would come back for one last scare and she would escape again. Instead, they're like, okay, but what if an alien spacecraft emerges from over the cornfields and she just goes, what the fuck? And drops the one F-bomb in the movie.
Yeah, I feel like Mary Elizabeth Winstead is an underutilized actress in Hollywood. She's good for a role like this because she's not really a damsel in distress. All the shit that she is doing, she's basically doing by herself. And the other guy is just kind of there as a support person.
She is scrappy. She figures things out as quick as possible. Like she's MacGyvering a way to start a fire in her room.
Right.
She makes a shiv. All this stuff is just, how do I get out of here? The wheels start turning.
That suit that she makes is pretty damn impressive for what it is. She's using a fucking N95 filter on the end of that bottle that is her gas mask. How many people, Betsy, looked at this movie and made a very similar kind of a thing when COVID happened? I don't know. But in that case, you could just wear the fucking mask. But that's a separate conversation. I mean, the only other person here is John Gallagher Jr., and I'm sorry I had to say that name. Jim is here as I kind of a fodder kind of a guy. I don't really get his deal.
I feel like he is there to, again, make us ask questions. Because she is trying to get this other guy on her side. Like, did he hurt you? And he says, no, I did it to myself because I wasn't trying to get out. I was trying to get in.
I was fighting to get in here.
I was fighting to get in this bunker because I helped him build this and I knew it was here. And when shit was going down, I saw it for myself.
Right.
So he is there to be the voice of, I know that something actually happened. I am a secondary witness, and I'm not crazy in the way that you perceive this other guy to be crazy.
And like I said before, he doesn't really have the words to describe what the attack, quote unquote, was, but he did see something that he can't quite express. And when the two of them are having their little acting moment where they're talking about their past, his story is, I was a really, really fast runner. I got a full ride scholarship because of my track performance, and I had a train ticket to go to college and start my college career. But in the back of his mind, he knew he was going to fail because of his poor grades. He said that I outran my bad grades. So instead of going to college and failing at college, I decided to stay here. Which as a character building moment here, it kind of makes sense because it explains that, yeah, he is kind of a simple-minded kind of a guy, but he's handy. And maybe he's a lot more susceptible to this crazy bullshit that John Goodman is putting in his brain.
He can be swayed both ways because he was clearly convinced enough by John Goodman that this is the place he needs to be if shit goes down.
Sure.
But he also is quick to get on her side when she says, here's all the things I'm noticing. He looked me in the eye and said this was his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
That's not his daughter. That's another girl that I used to go to school with.
Yeah, he knew the story of the missing girl before, saying, no, that's not his daughter. This is this other chick who went missing. So yeah, they kind of feed the plot points through him, and he is a convenient way to get the Michelle character to the next step of whatever her path is. And the fact that they just off him in the middle of the movie is a great jumping off point for the ending of the movie. But, I mean, besides those 3 people, there are literally only 8 people in the entire credits of the movie. And we love movies like this. By the way, we didn't mention it before, but the boyfriend that she's talking to on the phone, that's Bradley Cooper. Literally, all he did to record this, he recorded a voice message on his phone, sent it to J.J. Abrams, and that was the extent of it. Read these lines and we'll put it into the movie. That's how it happened.
Because they're not talking to each other. He is just talking at her. So
Yes.
it'd be very easy to have him just record.
There's no conversation there. It's just him talking. But yeah, it's Bradley Cooper. It's her. It's the 2 guys. It's the woman outside and a person on the radio. Am I forgetting anybody?
I think there's 2 people on the radio, but that's, again, the long and short of it.
Yeah, there's another radio person early on because, by the way, I forgot about this. Right before she gets into the car accident, there's a report saying that there's a whole bunch of power surges happening everywhere. So again, foreshadowing, shit's going on.
And they don't say if this is all tied together. We don't know if all of this coincides with what is going on in New York. They never definitively say that it's the same universe, the same attacks, that any of this is related. It's just more aliens.
Just more aliens would be a good tagline for Cloverfield 3. I'm just going to put that out there. But Betsy, did you have anything else to mention about 10 Cloverfield Lane?
Just 2 very brief things. The fact that I wrote in my notes the words toilet shower.
Yep.
That's a thing in this movie.
It is.
And the scene where she goes up the ventilation shaft, resets everything, gets the filter going, and then John Goodman says, teamwork makes me want to listen to music or
Problem solving is what he says.
something like that. And then it makes him dance. And
Yeah.
he's dancing while these 2 are like, this man is insane.
Just shaking his butt everywhere. That's a really great scene. I just wanted to point out the living space where I don't know who it was who put this dialogue in the script, but it's clearly somebody who has an appreciation for physical media, where he says, I've got all these DVDs, make sure to put them back in their sleeves, and we got these VHS tapes and all this other entertainment stuff.
I'm going to credit that to Damien Chazelle, the guy who's made 2 movies about jazz.
No, that's him putting the jukebox in here.
Maybe, but he seems like a guy who probably appreciates physical media.
I mean, speaking of jukebox, I also got V for Vendetta vibes too, because you are being held. You don't know who this person is. You have to stay here for a year. And you basically have nothing else better to do other than just do puzzles and shit.
Trent, you were also reading there's a lot of correlation to Lost. There is an entire thing about a guy who lives in a bunker. There's music. There's one day I'm going to get you to watch this
I
show.
have not seen Lost.
One
You've
day,
seen all of it.
You will understand all of my references to a guy living in a bunker as it pertains to Lost.
All right. That'll have to wait for another day, but that will be the end of 2016 for this decade series. Guys, what did you think about the original Cloverfield plus 10 Cloverfield Lane? I cannot wait to be able to rewatch the original Cloverfield because we saw it at the beginning of the year, and the rule is we can't watch new movies again during the same year before our award show. which of course will be happening at the end of the year. But until then, we would like to hear your thoughts about all these movies. Send your thoughts to neverseenitpod@gmail.com. And finally, we got somebody talking to us about movies. We've been complaining for weeks. Nobody's emailing us, but Betsy, this was not an email. What do you got over there?
Well, as we also keep saying, you don't have to email us. You can message us on any of our social media platforms. And we got a message from Blake about our last movie, Lady in the Water, which if you haven't listened to the episode, go back and do that. But I'll give you the summation. Trent was not a fan.
I was not.
So it is interesting that to that movie, Blake said, my second favorite Shyamalan. Love this weird-ass movie. Always terrifies me.
I have so many questions for you, Blake.
First of all, I want to know what his favorite Shyamalan is, if this is number 2, because it may be something we don't suspect.
Oh, God. I have so many questions. What exactly terrifies you about the movie? Is it merely the premise of the movie, or is there something else sinister that we don't know about? Because I will tell you, watching Lady in the Water, the only terrifying things about it are the fucking wolf creatures, but that's just a dog. And those creatures aren't even coming after people. They're coming after this wet lady. So I really don't know what you're thinking about liking Lady in the Water, but that's just me.
I think what you're thinking is you need more details. You need him to elaborate. So send us further clarification, Blake, because we would like to understand why this one in particular is your second favorite Shyamalan.
You're allowed to like bad
you
movies.
Are. You are allowed to like what you like. And maybe it's something that I just don't understand. I've only watched that movie twice. I tried it 20 years ago and I tried it a week ago.
Explain yourself, Blake, but that is the end of 10 Cloverfield Lane. We would invite you, go to patreon.com/neverseenitpod, sign up today, and you can listen to the original Cloverfield episode where Betsy and I watched it for the first time and fucking loved it. It's just $5 a month. You get access to that episode and everything else that we got out there. I think we're close to about 180 extra pieces of content out there. It's not just about movies. We have a whole other show that premieres the first Friday of every month called The Conversation Pit, where Betsy and I just talk about a topic. And there's a lot of things that we have talked about over the couple years we've been doing it. So with that, we have reached the end of our decade series. Next week, we're covering 2026. Betsy, tell the people what we're going to be covering next week.
Gee, what could it be, Trent?
What could it be?
What major blockbuster summer movies have been coming out in the last few weeks from major directors?
We already said we're not covering Spider-Man, so what else could it be?
Well, it's the Odyssey, Trent.
Of course
it's the Odyssey.
Of course. After we covered Oppenheimer for the end of our 2023 decade series, it just makes sense to do the Odyssey. But you're going to have to come back next week for another episode of Never Seen It. Until then, my name is Trent.
My name is Betsy.
We'll catch you then. See ya, folks.